Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this Monday. Monday, the 12th of February, 2024, it is. Thank you for tuning in. Now, here's the thing, guys. I'm going to get into something that's very important, and I think it's kind of like why people are not interested, and a lot of people are not interested, is I think it's kind of like a psyop or whatever. They've made it so that people are just, they don't want to hear about it, but it's so important. But we're going to get into it in a minute or two. First, we're going to talk about the $10 trillion in U.S. government bonds. Oh, can you imagine? For sale in 2024. $10 trillion. That's, how much money is that in billions? It would be what? $10,000 billion? 10,000 billion. Why so much U.S. new issuance of U.S. government bonds coming up for sale? Why? Well, a good chunk of this is because of the maturity. There's a lot of bonds coming into maturity, and so they're going to have to issue a lot to pay off what they already owe. And then there's over $1 trillion of the unsustainable part of the system that's going on right now. This is bigger than the U.S. defense budget. What they owe on excess interest on the it's just. Has anybody ever stopped? People that invest in bonds and stuff stopped for a minute just to stop and think for a minute and say, "Hey, you know what? What if the government just suddenly says, hey, you know what? We're defaulting on all this mountain because it's just growing too big." What if? Just saying. Now, this is my big story today, and why is because it's so important. It's all over the news. It's called the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridian something Current. It says this abbreviation means nothing to most people living on the eastern seaboard of the United States. In the Maritimes of Canada, Greenland, Scandinavia, the United Kingdom, and Europe. But it is actually of a critical importance to them. It says Amok stands for the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Current. See, they used to just have a simple name for this. They used to just call it the Gulf, not the Gulf Stream. I get the, that's the wind current. No, it's the, anyway, they changed the name of it now to Amok, Atlantic Meridional Overturning Current. And what it does is it basically, it's a circulatory system on the Earth that keeps Europe warm and keeps the east coast of the United States warm. Now, there was a movie made not too long ago. It was called The Day After Tomorrow. And see, it says in there 10,000 years ago or whatever, one storm basically changed the face of our planet. That's what it was about, a storm that basically can occur, and because of the temperature differential between the ocean currents of the south and the north. So this AMOC is very important. It's running into trouble right now. It says it's running amok. And this is why we're having a feature in the weather that we're having over North America here called the polar vortex. We didn't used to have that. That's a new weather anomaly feature, and it's affecting a lot of us. Do you know how cold it gets down in Texas now at certain times of the year because of this vortex? But that's a feature that's developing because what we're seeing is the AMOC is actually slowing down. But if it stops, and this is where it slows down first before it stops, it says the the vast river of the Atlantic Ocean that transports heat from the equator north along the east coast of America before turning to the east at Cape Cod in Nova Scotia and heading toward the Arctic, then down the west coast of Europe and back toward the equator. It's better known as the Gulf Stream. Yeah, that's what it was, the Gulf Stream. There's also an air current across America, but that's a separate issue. It says to understand this, think of the cooling system in a conventional car. Coolant circulates through the engine, picks up heat from the cylinders, and then travels to the radiator where it's cooled before returning to the engine to be heated again. That's exactly how this works. And if this thing stops, the dramatic change in the Earth's environment is going to be like unbelievable. But it's been slowing. But when it stops suddenly. And Europe will be cast into a deep freeze. Where I'm living right now won't be good either. Because there's probably the polar vortex increases its energy. And I'll tell you guys, I just been through a snowstorm up here. It was absolutely unbelievable. The snow was up to my chest in one storm. And I mean, I was dazed digging it out of my driveway. You know, I quite literally dazed digging it out of my driveway to get free. And there's a lot of people, some of them are still actually trapped by this thing. They were trapped for a week or more. Up just about 100 miles from where I live, in a place called Cape Breton Island. Oh, terrible storm. But this is caused by this polar vortex. And honest to gosh, I hate to think how bad it could get. You could quite literally here, if the Amok stops running right here in Canada, in eastern Canada here, you could get snowstorms that could be 30 feet of snow in one storm, bury you inside your house, and that's the end of you. This thing could really get bad if things tip toward this Amok actually stopping. And that's the way it's doing. It slows down and then it stops. And they know that. They know that because they're able to go back into core samples of ice samples from thousands of years ago. And they can see where it's done this before. And so now the scientists are warning. And I think that there is a thing where people are so divided on this issue of change in the global ecosystem, environmental changes, massive changes that can happen to the world, changes that have occurred before in the past, thousands of years ago. The world is not static. It's not a place that's always the same and it's always going to be the same. But there's people out there who deny all the evidence in front of them. They'll actually deny it because of political reasons. And to me, it just doesn't make sense. If there's evidence pointing right in your face and there's a climactic shift coming that is unprecedented, you should pay attention. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. You should sit up and say, hey, you know what? These scientists are telling us that this Amok is getting ready to run amok. And what it could cause, I mean, the world as you know it would be entirely changed. Watch the movie. Watch the movie The Day After Tomorrow. Because that movie was almost prophetic. It's a few years ago. They produced it. But let's see, what year was it that they produced The Day After Tomorrow? Let's say on here. Says Jack Hall, paleoclimatologist, makes a daring trek from Washington, D.C. to New York City to reach his son, trapped in the crosshairs of a sudden international storm which plunges the planet into a new ice age. That was a really good movie. It had Dennis Quaid in it. It was really good. I might watch it again. I might pull it up on YouTube or something to watch. Excuse me. And watch it again. Now, where was I? I got a lot more news on here. Trying to find the story that I'm interested in here. Yeah, this story right here about Elon Musk's Starlink. It says Ukraine is saying that Elon Musk's Starlink is being used by Russian forces near the front line. Now, I don't know if this is correct or not, because I don't think Starlink itself is saying that this is happening. It says the Wall Street Journal reported earlier Sunday, citing Ukraine's military intelligence, that Russian forces are using the satellite internet system in occupied Ukraine. So, yeah, well, if the Wall Street Journal is reporting on that, that is probably correct. The Starlink satellite services in Ukraine during the early months of Russia's full-scale invasion responded to Kiev's plea. Soon the devices became a vital part of the country's infrastructure, providing internet services in areas of fighting and beyond. But now are the Russians using it? Are they? And how many do the Russians have, and how many could they get? Question mark. Now Israel, the war in Israel is still going on. Israel is striking Rafah. And Biden has warned Netanyahu to have credible plans to protect civilians. So the war is raging on right here. And civilians are continuing to die, and people are continuing to die in there. It says here, where would civilians go? It says officials spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to brief reporters on the sensitive negotiations. Says Saudi Arabia and other countries have also warned of severe repercussions if Israel goes into Rafah. Says an Israel offense on Rafah would lead to an unspeakable humanitarian catastrophe and grave tensions with Egypt. So 112 bodies were taken to Gaza hospital in one day. So it's not good. The war's still raging there, actually. Just like you see in the picture there, raging war. Now Biden is calling on snack companies to stop shrinkflation ahead of the Super. We've known about shrinkflation now. I've been talking about shrinkflation on my show now for the last how many years? So the government's just figuring it out now. What the company's been doing behind the scenes, how they've been cutting the size of the packages for years. Well, they've been trimming the size of the packages probably for the last 10 years. And now they've got them down to where they're the size like a candy bar now is the size of what used to be a... I mean, you'd have to eat 4 of them to equal what used to be a normal size candy bar. And now I guess they're shrinking them even smaller. And in the end, they're going to be microscopic. And so Biden's on here and he says the snack companies have to stop this shrinkflation. Well, they'll just raise prices. That just do well, you know. I mean, it's either you get shrinkflation or you get them raising prices. It's one of the two. You take your choice. It says President Joe Biden doesn't want corporate greed to eat up your Super Bowl snack spread. Too late. They've already done it. They've been doing it for years. They've already shrunk the packages down. You know, look, he's got an Oreo package there sitting on the desk. And it's not as big as his hand, or about the same size. He could spread his hand across the whole Oreo package. I remember when the Oreo packages used to be about 3 inches wider than that and about 3 inches longer than that and about 1.5 inches deeper than that. They're twice that size. You know, if you shrink something down on all 3 sides, they can get away with an awful lot, you know, shrinking stuff. Now, it says here, will a report questioning Biden's memory change voters' minds? This is a big question mark. Because that report, they're worried that it's going to do damage to his campaign. And they're saying, will it change voters' minds? It says American voters, including many Democrats, have consistently raised Joe Biden's age as one of their biggest concerns about the 81-year-old president ahead of the November elections. So people are concerned about this. And so we're going to have to wait and see what happens with that. But let's move on. Let's take a look at the markets today, because I've been going on quite a long time here. What are we into the show? 15 minutes into the show, and I haven't even got into the markets yet. Well, here we have silver today. It's up 8 cents at $22.67. Looks like it was up quite a bit earlier in the day. It looks like it crossed $30 for a very short period of time. Went up to about $30.10. I mean, why am I saying $30.10? $23.10. It went up to $23.10. Now it's back down to $22.62, but we're still up a few pennies on the day. Now gold today, gold is 2014, and it is down $10.20 so far today. Cryptocurrency. Bitcoin's doing really well. It's almost ready right now to cross $50,000. 49,914. Oh boy, go Bitcoin go. Look at that. I kind of like seeing that Bitcoin. I'm going to tell you, I would not be a bit surprised if the high this time, because looking at previous patterns, I wouldn't be surprised if it crosses the 100,000 mark. It would not surprise me at all. Ethereum, $25.59. XRP is at 52.8 cents. The XRP is a 50-cent king. It's always around. Ever since I've known it, it's always been around 50 cents. Taking a look at the Dow Jones, 49.95, 38,721 is how much the Dow is today. It's up 49.95 points. So it's getting almost ready to cross 39,000. Heck, we're heading to 40,000. It keeps on going. Taking a look at oil today, 76.97. It's up 13 cents. Hard to believe how the market continues to trot upwards. Buoyed on what? Considering what's actually going on in the world, what tenuous ground we're on. Taking a look at bonds today, we're looking at a mixed bag. Middle of the yield curve's falling. Long end and short end's rising. We're looking at a 10 years rising, and 10 years at 4.19, and it's up 0.6 basis point. And the U.S. 30 years up 1.5 basis points, and it's at 4.39. And finishing off here today with the dollar index at 104.22. The dollar index is over 104. It's amazing how the dollar is actually staying strong, but it's what it's being compared against. You know how it's compared mostly against the euro. The other currencies it's being compared against are not good, So it doesn't surprise me much. Thank you guys for listening to the show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.